Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, Ole Dammegård returns to the show. Ole is one of the preeminent researchers studying and exposing the dark business of assassination and false flags. For tonight's discussion, I asked Ole to offer his expert opinion and perspective on what really happened with the recent Paris terror attack that took place on Friday the 13th, a day which is very much cloaked in occultism. Ole analyzes whether the France attack was yet another engineered event in a long line of false flags designed to manipulate the mass consciousness in order to further advance the one-world agenda of the puppet masters. And so without further ado, here's Ole Dammegård.
So Ole, we had the recent Paris attacks. Many of us that look into this type of stuff, we immediately think in terms of government-sponsored, some kind of false flag, some kind of Gladio type of event. But we also want to be prudent just in case it's not one of those events. So I wanted to bring you on the show to have you give us your insight as to what was going on or what went on in Paris.
I think what you say is really important because especially if you're in my position where I've studied this for so many years and now people are really waking up to the facts of what is going on. So many people approach me for advice and say, please, what's happening, what's going on, and so on. So for me, it's extremely important not to shout out false flag just because something happened. Yet again, at this point in history, I mean, it's almost whatever you look at, it's a false flag, it's a false flag, it's a false flag once you start pulling it apart. I just want to explain, if people are not aware of the term false flag operation, it's an old naval term. And it comes from, in the old days, if one of these nations like the England, Spain, Holland, these naval nations, if they wanted to conquer or invade a country, they could very easily do it because they were so overwhelmingly powerful when it came to their fleet and arms and so on. But if they did it, they could have problems with neighboring countries, all of these things. So what they came up with was instead that if they made themselves look like the victim instead of the aggressor, that would awake the empathy for everyone else, and then they would accept their agenda. So what they did was they used to put the enemy's flag on their own ship, one of their own ships, and then they let that ship attack them, making them into the victim of this attack, saying, oh my God, we need to defend ourselves, and that then would justify their aggression and their invasion, rape, plunder, whatever, because they had been under attack and they were just defending themselves. But I tell you, when you study history, which I've done for so many years, I don't know how many of the wars in modern days as well are based on false flag operations. The thing that ignites the whole thing so often are false flags. So this is absolutely nothing new. And the power structure behind what is called the New World Order, they love this one. They use it all the time. So it's false flag operations. We also have one of the templates they use is problem, reaction, solution. We've discussed this many times on your program. It's an old Roman template. They've only got a very few, so it's not that difficult to keep track of. One is diversion, to make something explode over here, so everybody looks that direction, and then you get away with whatever you do over here. Diversion, the other one is divide and conquer, go in and mess the whole thing up, point at some innocent patsy or nationality or group or sect or whatever, say they're the ones causing the trouble, and so that the population will be totally furious with that group, not looking at you who are the real problem. So that's the other one. And then problem, reaction, solution. This is the one. The whole idea with this is that how can a small group, a small elite, they call themselves the elite few control the masses? Very few people, how can you control millions of others, or billions, whatever? And the answer to that question is through fear. You need to create an outer enemy where the threat is from the outside to freak people out, the population out, so that they will not think logically or rational, but react emotionally. and say, oh my God, we're under attack or whatever it is. And then the population will turn towards this elite that are set there or have elected themselves to rule and say, please, please, we need protection. And then they will come and serve us the solution. And this solution is every single time something that we would never, ever have accepted had it not been for the problem reaction solution. And these days, it is just rampant, the rate of these false flags based on problem reaction solution. It's just on an ongoing base. All of these mass shootings, all of these so-called terror attacks, I don't know how many of them, if not all, are based on this principle. And nowadays, the problem is more or less every single time some kind of terror event or a bomb or a mass shooting or a virus or a financial crash, something like that, to get the emotional reaction from us. Oh my God, something needs to be done. Help us, help us, help us. And then they will serve the solution. And the solution every single time is that you, the normal person, you have to accept more and more militarized police, martial law, surveillance, cameras. You have to pay for all of these things. You have to pay for all of these unjust wars that are based on false flag, absolute, total lies. But you're the one who have to pay. And they're now doing everything they can to force us into a corner where they can create absolute, total chaos globally, at least in the Western world. And through this chaos and divide and conquer, now we're pointing at all these immigrants coming in and so on, saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And in that chaos created by them, they can come in and just create martial law, boom, total military overtake for our protection with a world army created from the NATO forces, the American forces, and the UN forces joined together into one world army. But this world army is there to control us, not to defend us. This is the thing. So we are at a point where we really need to wake up to what's going on, because either I'm just full of it, or if I'm spot on, then we're looking at a very, very dark and sinister development that can end up in a very dark future for us all. Very extremely controlled on all levels. So yet again, we're being indirectly blessed with these operations that when you look at them, when you really look at what's going on, what the evidence shows you, it soon becomes very evident that here is yet one more of these. And the more they do, the more people wake up to what's going on. Because once you see how this terror pie is made, once you start seeing what ingredients are needed, then as soon as you even feel the smell of them baking one of these, then this is the way to wake up in a totally non-violent way, but just see how it's done. This is why I've focused some 30 years on trying to show the template. How are these things carried out? What is needed? What are the ingredients? How can you spot the build-up? And how can you stop it?
Oli, what is the European mindset? Do you get a sense, because you're out there, that they're getting this, that they understand that there's something doesn't stack up with this event? Are they thinking in terms that it's a false flag, that it's government-sponsored and so on? Or do you have a situation where, like we have in the United States, most people just go with the flow? They believe the official story.
It's like that globally. I think we're still, to a very large extent, the few that sees what's going on, because most of them react emotionally. And this is when, if you go to Facebook, you will see all of these people supporting it with this French flag, with all of these things, not even looking into what's going on, just totally, going into the reaction.
Right.
Oh, awful, awful, awful. ISIS, ISIS, ISIS. We must defend ourselves by bombing the living bejesus out of these countries, and so on, because they've asked for it. But I'm saying, instead of reacting, just take a step back, breathe, calm down, don't react. I mean, maybe what you're being served is the truth. Then in that case, your reaction will be the correct one. But if not, at least take the time to start looking at it. Look at the evidence. Look at what happened, the sequence of the events, who is involved. Could it possibly be the same people as on earlier very similar events? Could we see the same people there? Or what we don't see is also very important.
Right.
What is not happening. These are the sure signs of a blackout. What does not happen, what normally should happen, and so on. So these are the things that I focus a lot of attention on, and I'm so happy to see that this has spread a lot over the internet. I mean, just a few years ago, I felt so alone looking at these events, and now, boom, there's so many that is on it. You know, they're just on the photos, totally going into great detail, sending me information. It's wonderful. I just want to thank everyone who sends me stuff like that, because I'm so overloaded, so I can't find it all myself, and especially when I'm not on location. But the whole composite of it, when you start putting it together, gives you a very different version than the official version.
You know, it's interesting. You talk about problem, reaction, solution, and one of the other things that they do is there's a distraction component too, where here in the United States, what happened was, as soon as this happened, Oli, of course it was on all the media, but then also what happened, they brought in the Charlie Sheen HIV positive story, and that became headlines all over the place. He's an actor in the United States. You probably know who he is.
Yeah.
Right? So here we have this event taking place in Paris, and then, you know, it gets airtime. In conjunction with that, big news, Charlie Sheen, HIV positive. And I'm looking at that, and really what it is we're in a cartoon world, you know, and that's another vehicle in which to distract people, to keep them from really, really looking at what's going on in Paris. We'll tell you about it. You'll take the talking points, you'll take the aspects of it that we want you to walk away with. But in the meantime, hey, look, go pay attention to what's going on with Charlie Sheen. It's really incredible. It really is. I mean, they play the public for being very, very stupid.
But both of these things are aimed emotionally. You know, Charlie Sheen are also, oh, and then, so you get into the emotional thing of the whole thing, and at the same time, your attention is diverted away from it. So it's very, very interesting observation you make there. Because, for instance, when the Oslo massacre was done, the mass shootings on the island, the very same day as this went out globally in the news, Amy Winehouse died under very strange circumstances.
That's right.
So the front pages were filled with Amy Winehouse dead and the images of these dead victims. Total emotional impact. Once again, if I'm true, if I'm correct in my observations, then we have to see this as from a whole different angle. Are we being played? You know, are they playing ping pong with our brains to get us into a certain position where they can then move forward with the agenda? And we can see it's, you know, like cui bono, who benefits? That's one of the main questions you have to ask. And I mean, they hadn't even identified the people that by coincidence managed to kill themselves, which was very handy, blow themselves up so they can't be identified even. And then before the bodies are even cold, boom, you go and bomb the living crap out of Syria. Now these are real victims created.
Right.
In these areas. But when you look at what's happening in Paris, we have to look very, very in great details to see what really happened. Did anything happen? Was there any awareness of this thing before it actually happened officially? And if so, how would that be possible? And so on. So I think it would be great if it's okay with you, then maybe we can go through a lot of the details and just step by step see. Whoop.
Let's do that, Oli, because I think a lot of people do not know all of the details. What they have is just basically the cover story. It's a veneer, but nobody's looking underneath the veneer. So if you can take us through that, that would be great.
I'm still confused, to say the least, because there's so much going on. There's so many things happening. I'm doing like 2-3 shows a day, 2 hours. So it's hard for me to focus as well. I just try to get out on the air as soon as possible to stop the emotional reaction and just say, please, before you react, Let's just see what's going on and so on, because that is the most important one, that we don't just jump. Okay, so the official story that most people know is that ISIS apparently sent some 8 suicide bombers into Paris, this super high-tech country with surveillance and millions and billions of security things and stuff, especially after Charlie Hebdo. I mean, they really amplified the whole thing. But the people from these desert areas somehow managed to get in through now, because European countries, the borders are open and all these refugees. So somehow they managed to get into Paris with weapons, with explosives, with all of these things. Very skilled people. They must be that. Otherwise they would never have managed. And so they wanted the revenge for what's going on in Syria. So what are they going to do? They're going to kill a lot of people and blow themselves up, make a statement. So what they did was that they hit several different small cafes in the areas where very popular areas, especially among young people. They also hit Paris, which is, I mean, this is a town that the reputation is romance and beauty and calm, and let's go to Paris in spring and walk Champs-Élysées or go to Disneyland, these type of things. Very positive emotions and emotional memories from this town and so on. So if you wanted to hit badly, emotionally, this would be a good place to do it, especially if you had already carried out operations like this, so that you have been training for this in earlier events. So anyway, so they hit some cafes, they hit a concert hall called Bataclan, and where it said that they killed at least 80 people, and then there was a lot of injured people as well. There was a band playing there called
Eagles of Death.
Eagles of Death, yeah, where the singer's nickname is the Devil, which is, and right after this happened, the leaders of many different nations said this is the work of the devil. And so I'm just saying there's many times there's a lot of psyop in these things as well.
That's right.
They hit you from different angles to get your subconscious into like this. So just see these things as pieces of puzzle. Maybe some of them doesn't fit in. I'm just mentioning them anyway. Okay. So there was the concert hall, there was these small cafes, and then the big stadium, football, soccer stadium, where there were, I don't know how many thousands of people watching the game between France and Germany. So at the stadium, there's always specific countries involved in these operations lately. You have Israel is very often very, or Jewish interests are very central in these things. Germany is always there right before or after with Angela Merkel right there to support whatever bombings or whatever the thing is. The UK is there, France is there, Canada, Australia, and the US. And now I must say Denmark as well, and unfortunately Sweden, after they have more or less officially joined NATO, which they actually did in 1954, but now it's officially, and now they've really stepped it up. So at this game, we had François Hollande, which is president of France. He was at the game together with his colleague from Germany. So we have these very central figures at the same stadium. Okay, so the game starts, everything is fine. I would point out that if you want maximum publicity, that would be a good place to get it. Also, because you want to involve as many people emotionally as possible. So if you got like 20, 30,000 people in the stadium, every single one of them and their families will be shocked of what happened, and that would spread this impact. Great place to do it. Okay, so they sit there, they're playing, blah, 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 and suddenly, boom, boom, 2 explosions, big explosions, or the sound of explosions. Okay, so, but the game doesn't really stop, they continue, and then after a while, François Hollande is exactly like George Bush Jr. when he was at the school reading about the little book with the school kids.
Yeah, My Little Goat.
My Little Goat, that book. And his advisors come and whispers in his ears, they've just hit one of the towers, and he does not react at all. He keeps listening to the children and so on, blah, 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 and so on. Exactly, more or less identical. Here, Francois Hollande's advisor come, whispers in his ears. Does he look freaked out? Does he look shocked? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Is he being swarmed by bodyguards leading him out and jumping on top of him, protecting him? Absolutely not. Now, the official story is that there were 2 suicide bombers outside, 2 or 3, and they wanted to get in, but they forgot to buy a ticket. So that was a bit of a mess in the plan, detail. We're gonna get into the stadium with bombs around us, even if there's checks and so on but we'll get in there. Shit, we should have bought tickets. Well, apparently they didn't. One of them bought a ticket, but they were turned away by security personnel. So instead, they were very upset, so they blew themselves up outside the stadium, not hurting, as far as I know, anyone. There's no marks of bombs, there's no epicenter, there's nothing on the outside. Absolutely nothing. Only the sound of the explosions. Now, in your country, I don't know if you know it, but now at the big games, even small games, and even when teams are practicing, you have crowd noise in the PA systems. They add to the crowd noise. When you're watching basketball games on TV or whatever it is, you will hear this crowd, wow, everybody screaming, cheering. It's digital. They're at it, and there are big discussions in sports arenas. Is this right or is it wrong? Should we really do these things? So my question is, if you can amp that up, what says that you're not able to get the explosion sound out over the PA system?
That's right.
Nobody would react. Everybody's on the inside. Nobody's on the outside. If they hear boom and somebody says it was a bomb outside, would you know the difference? So I'm asking you, why are there no photos at all from the outside of the site of the explosion? There is zero. Nothing.
And you have to figure that stadium has to have surveillance.
Of course. Where are the cameras? I mean,
Exactly.
they've invested millions, and in a place like that, come on, guys.
Right.
That exactly on the entrance and the exits, that would be where to place the cameras out of real security concern. Because if there is a panic situation and people there's a stampede, and people are being crushed and so on, you need to be able to see exit and entrances. That is where everything will happen.
That's right.
Sorry, no cameras working. And by the way, when this whole thing happened, as far as I've been informed by people on location, the cell phone system went dead to start with. This is standard at Black Ops. They want to totally control the information flow going out. So one of the things is they block the mobile net. They did it at 9/11. They did on so many of these. Suddenly the phone system goes down, and afterwards it's explained with, yeah, but everybody tried to call home and see, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you know this just happened? And there was an overload of the system.
Right.
I would question that very much. Anyway, so all of this happened. Then also you would think that if there were a bomb threat, what would be the best thing to keep all of these 20, 30,000, I don't know how many thousands of people were in the stadium, where there could be more possible bombers? Would it be best to get them out, spread them out, or hold them in there? Well, they were held in there. They were not let out. And instead, Francois Hollande, he went up to the, the booth for the commentators. As far as I know, the glass to these booths are not bulletproof, but there are the photos of him standing, talking in a mobile phone with his advisors, visible for the whole stadium. What kind of security is that if you really are under attack? I would say here, he's there so that everybody in the stadium say, oh, have you seen the president is up there? You know, everybody sees him, everybody knows he's there, everybody hears what's going on, and so on. Then you have it spreads all over the place. You know, first it was the stadium here. Then, for instance, in the U.S., the Fox News went out and said that Geraldo Rivera's daughter Simone was inside. No, first they said she was inside the concert hall, and then suddenly, whoops, sorry, no, she was in the stadium. And Geraldo, he started talking about mentioning 3 explosions. Sorry, there were only 2. And he also said that they saw all these SWAT teams and emergency crews coming in, and people were running out. And so, sorry, the exits were closed. And if you look at the photos, no SWAT teams, no emergency crew, nothing. So where did that come from? I'm asking you to look at this objectively, because if we're being bombarded with propaganda, this is the way it would look. Do you know also there was a Twitter account called PC Books, okay? And this Twitter account went out on 2 days before this happened, on the 11th, speaking about the terror attacks, that now there was 120 dead and more than 270 wounded. Terror attacks in Paris 2 days before it happened. When it comes to the way that they pump these things out, there is something called karma, and apparently I've been told by people who knows these things, the people behind these awful attacks in the New World Order, behind that, according to them, if they can show the victim what's going to happen and the victim does not react, then the karma is on the victim. So there's always like a trailer going out beforehand saying, doo-doo-doo-doo, and if you don't react, boom, that's it. And very, very, very often you have like 1 year before or 5 years before the exact theme or the exact thing that's going to happen. You can see it in movies and films and whatever. It's right there in front of your eyes. You don't react, blame yourself. And here we have this Twitter account. And when you check out this Twitter account, I don't know who is behind it, but when the Ebola thing was on, there was the exact same thing happening there. The exact same numbers, 120 dead, and now approaching 270. The exact same numbers, and there were 3 different incidents. The Ebola, there was something else I forgot, and then now the exact same numbers before it actually happened. Then you had Wikipedia, the same evening as it happened, 2 hours after. Wikipedia had everything there with all the numbers, with the whole setup, with everything, including 2306 in the evening. On Wikipedia, you could read about that Francois Hollande was saying this and this in his statement, his public statement. Well, I'm sorry, that happened like 56 minutes later. How could Wikipedia even know about this? Where did they get the information? Where did they get the numbers? How did they know the numbers of dead? How did they know 2 hours after it happened? Then you have people in the area in Paris. I've been in touch with people that had children in the schools and so on. And one woman said that her son this morning came back with a note from school saying that in case of an emergency, just in case. I mean, this is not something that they come home with every other day. She said it's never happened before. But they were given a note saying, in case of an emergency, don't go to the school, don't call here, don't leave your house, stay at home, and follow the news from a radio station called French Blue. You will get any updates from there. She also said there was a lot of ambulances in central Paris this morning, a lot. Then you have the drill. In this, when you do false flag operation, a drill is more or less every single time a very, very specific ingredient in this. This drill is there with more or less the identical theme of what's going on, what's going to happen, so that they can go from what they call slow thinking into fast acting. And the people involved in the drill, I would say most of them have no idea about that this is going to be a real event. They're there to train and practice and all of these things. And it's they went out. There was a I love this. The same people popping up again and again. There was a man called, his name is Patrick Pelou, and he gave an interview talking about a drill this very morning, that there was a big, what they call a mass casualty incident in Paris, where they trained a terror attack on multiple different locations, and the police were involved, the ambulance services, the fire brigade, everybody was involved in this whole practice. So it was so good because they were prepared, and thanks to this, they were able to save some lives and so on. Very handy that exact thing was there. And like I said, many people saw loads of ambulances in central Paris before this happened, before it happened.
Yeah.
Now you check this Patrick Pelou, because I always, when there's the people in the center of these dramas, I always check them out and see, whoa, hang on, who are you? Don't buy into the official story. So this Patrick Pelou, he's got quite an interesting background when it comes to these type of things. He's an emergency doctor, specialist, and he was in 2011 right in front of the Charlie Hebdo building when that was set on fire in a so-called attack. Okay, that was 2011. Then in January this year, when Charlie Hebdo happened, he was sitting in a meeting with fire brigade and ambulance services, first responders. Very handy that he was there. And when the whole thing happened and people were getting killed at the newspaper, killed, I say like this, because that was a massive big false flag, Charlie Hebdo. He was said to have been called by, because he used to work for Charlie Hebdo as well. And some of his friends that were being shot at officially called him and said, please, please, we're being shot at, help us, help us, help us. So he was one of the first who ran there to the office and came in and managed to help some of the people that had been shot. While he was doing that, he picked up his mobile and called the Prime Minister of France, telling them about the situation. Mike, have you got Obama's number in your mobile phone?
Yeah, I was just going to say, he happened to be everywhere.
That's very handy. And then this Patrick Pelou, he was on TV crying for these awful things that happened at the Charlie Hebdo thing. Okay? So, real tears, fake tears. Well, it turns out when you check him out, and I've done that he's actually played a doctor in 2 films. It's like one of them is called The Incognito. That's a appropriate name. And the doctor, he was playing a doctor in a film called Bad Girl as well. So he is an actor as well as this whole thing. So very handy that he was the one that saw this. And Charlie Hebdo, the offices are very close to one of the places where this happened as well. Also, on the 11th of November, there was a major drill in Denmark. Now, in January this year, when this Charlie Hebdo happened, I was able to publicly go out and predict that it was going to go down in Copenhagen as well, because I had been informed that there were 4 targets: Dublin, Paris, Copenhagen, and Venice. No, not Venice. I can't remember, but a city in Italy. And when it happened in the first 2 places, I went out and publicly warned, and I said it's going to happen very close to this and that train station. It didn't happen in January when I thought it was going to happen, but it happened an exact month later. I believe that because I went out openly and warned about it, they had to delay the whole thing. So here we have more or less the opposite order of things, because here we have the same countries involved, but now suddenly it's Denmark first. They had a major drill in a university in Copenhagen, a mass shooting drill, where it was on the 11th of the 11th. They love the numerology. So I was warning again, saying, please, 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 if you're on location, go there, film them even before they start and while they set the whole thing up. Make it very, very obvious to the people doing it that they're being observed and that they're being filmed. Because if they're up to sinister things, that could give them cold feet and defuse the whole operation. So this is one major way we can stop this crap from continuing, by exposing it like that. Anyway, so I had people in Denmark go there and start filming it. It was a major operation with the whole shebang, helicopters, and guess who was playing the terrorist? Swedish police. And they had 200 people, crisis actors from students there, where 50 of them were being shot up and so on. And when they arrested the terrorist, the two people that they came out with handcuffs and so on had tinfoil hats on, one with silver, one with gold. Okay, and the exact same gold folio thing is what you see now on all the victims in Paris. And I would just suggest, is it possible here that it's part of the psyop? You look there, your subconscious, oh yeah, tinfoil hats, conspiracy theories.
Absolutely.
There was also another big drill planned in Denmark where there were two vessels that were colliding. That was the theme, and that there would be an atomic disaster there. So there was a lot going on there, but that was cancelled for some reason. And instead, I thought that, maybe I made a fool of myself warning about Denmark, but better to look stupid than people getting hurt, And then instead of it happening in Denmark, boom, it happened in Paris on the 13th. Friday the 13th.
Right.
Here we have again. They love the symbolic and there's so many weird things and satanic.
They love numerology.
They love numerology. They love the location. That's why I always check out the buildings, the streets, the dates, what is going on here. And here was Friday the 13th. And there's a reason why this is a very famous and feared date, because historically wise, as far as I know, there were a group of Knights of Templars,
right,
that was massacred in France on the Friday the 13th. And this date has been a date where they want revenge. They want to get, hit back. So that's why people have feared it, because is this going to be the year? Is this going to be the year when the Friday and the 13th join? That's when you're on the risk of an attack. Anyway, so that was it. The police district where all of this happened was 11. It was the 11th month.
Now, I was going to say, Ole, for the audience's sake, for those that don't understand or think that the whole thing with dates and numbers is crazy, you have to do some research, because they love dates and they love numerology. That's how they operate. If you go to any one of these events, you will always be able to pick up that there's something there, always.
In the beginning, when I started looking into these things, I didn't believe in that either, but it just keeps repeating again and again and again and again. So you need to play focus to it, and just see, okay, I don't understand it maybe, but is it there? And if so, why?
Yeah.
And very, 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 very often they pick the days, like Veterans Days or Poppy Day or Valentine's Day, or these are the days to get the emotions going. Or if it was the Boston Tea Party.
Well, they blew up the Russian airline on October 31st on Halloween.
What can I say? It's there again and again. And then also the buildings, for instance, like there was a horrible thing happening in Sweden. It wasn't a mass shooting in a school just a few weeks ago. It has never happened before in Sweden. Just 1 week before that, there was a drill in Sweden about a mass shooting, which had never happened before. It was one of the biggest drills in the Swedish history, where Swedish police, ambulance forces, and the fire brigade were working together on the scene like this. And there was a program called Crime of the Week, who filmed this whole drill and presented it to the Swedish population that, it's so good that we're prepared should a thing like this happen. Boom, 1 week later, hallelujah, boom, it happened. More or less like that. There was a guy coming in looking like Darth Vader, more like, with a mask. And in Sweden, we don't have guns, so he stabbed, he had a sword and a knife, and he stabbed some people there officially. Then Swedish police came in and killed him, shot him dead. But you've never seen his face, you've never seen anything. The whole thing smells a long way, once again, of this whole thing. You know, like, and it's like one of the ambulances crashed into the wall of the school and stuff. I would say that could very well be because the driver was not used to drive an ambulance, because he was not an ambulance driver. He was part of this operation, and so on and so on.
You know what gets me, Ole, on this is what's a bit disconcerting as you're going through this is if you take a step back and you think about everything you're laying out here and all of these events, the level of worldwide coordination should be very concerning to everybody. I mean, not just in the United States and not just in France, but to everybody, because this says that their reach is unbelievable, because we're seeing, as you've mentioned before in the word that you use, they're using the same template over and over and over again. And in order for them to do that, they have to have the proper infrastructure, apparatus, and players in place throughout the world in order to make these things happen. So, when you start getting your head, you start getting away from, oh, it's coincidence or it's just something that happened, these awful terrorists, and you start to understand that these are coordinated events, it really starts to get, as I mentioned before, very disconcerting.
But I would say at the same time, I believe that we're seeing the same team carrying out these operations in Toronto, in Sydney, Australia, in Sweden, in Denmark, in Paris. It's the same. It's like a group of, like a rock group on tour, performing in different situations. It's the same people running around in SWAT team uniforms. It's the same victims. It's the same thing. Being flown around in NATO or American army planes from NATO base to NATO base, and then driven to wherever they're going to perform. They do the same again.
Right.
This group consists of crisis actors, military advisors, experts on explosives and smoke bombs and these type of effect things. You have marketing agencies involved with slogans and all of these things. You have it's a very small group. You got a producer, you got directors, but a very small group. And I've spoken to Chip Tatum, the CIA whistleblower, about this, and he said it's very, very possible what I'm suggesting is correct. So if it's a small group carrying it out, because these operations are totally compartmentalized, that's standard procedure. People only know their very little part of it, meaning that all of these ambulances you see drive around in Paris, many of them are driven by ambulance drivers that are doing their duty. They're not understanding what they're part of. Normal French police, I'm sure they've been told, you stand here and close off the street, protect the pedestrians. They're totally thinking that they're doing the right thing, but they're being played. They're part of this whole theater.
Right.
And all the soldiers you see walk around in the streets guarding, they think they're doing the right thing. And then there's a small little group in the center that is carrying the whole thing out.
Yeah, and what I meant by the high-level coordination, I'm talking about at the government level. I agree. The foot soldiers, the emergency workers, and so on, they're just doing their jobs. They're as confused and as everybody else. But at the actual planning stages and all of the theater that goes on, that is what people have to get their heads wrapped around, is that the people that are running these governments are evil people. And they're conducting these events so that they can continue their control. They can continue to do the things that they want to do, which essentially is to oppress humanity.
I would take it one step further, because I think the people at the government level are puppets, most of them. So they're just being part of the game. They're very aware of it. Hollande, Merkel, Obama, these type of people are very, very deeply involved in the whole thing, not though being the ones that are planning the whole thing and carrying the whole. They are players in this as well.
Yeah.
The power structure is bigger behind them. But it is through the exposure of groups like the Bilderberg Group, Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, these members, these secret, like the Bilderberg groups, these secret brotherhoods, and also the Freemasonry network, that is where these strings are being pulled without us being able to see it.
That's right.
So it is through these groups that you can see that these prime ministers, these royalties, these bankers, these politicians, these are connected. They have these secret meetings. I've written a book about it called Coup d'etat in slow motion, where the last 200 pages of the ebook, at least, is just the members of the Bilderberg Group from 1954 and all the way up to now. Because it's once you start seeing that, oh, these people are meeting, are pointing out where they met, what the agendas were, all of these things that has leaked out, you will see that, whoa, hang on. I thought I lived in a world filled with democracy and free choice and that, and then you see this going on. It's like, whoa. So I would say that the group we're looking at that are behind this is a small group, but with their tentacles in very key position in most countries, if not all.
Yes.
Western countries at least. They're focused on controlling people in key positions, meaning that just with a handful of people, you can control a country like Norway, Denmark, Holland, and so on. Just if you have them in the exact key positions, that's where you can control them. So, and this is why they invite these people into their meetings, see if they can use them, and if they can, their career just skyrockets like no. And this is also why when you see these meetings and you see who gets invited, you can predict what's going to happen. Like Bill Clinton, who is a drug dealer from Arkansas, very deeply involved in the whole Iran-Contras, together with George Bush Sr., he came from absolute nowhere. He was a low-ranking, not governor.
Yeah, he was a governor of Arkansas.
Yeah, sorry, governor of Arkansas. He was invited to the Bilderberg meeting. They liked him. He had a nice personality. He looked good on TV. He reminded people of Kennedy. He even shook his hand once. Let's get him in there. He would be a good front figure, a nice cover for our operations. And within 2 years, boom, he was president of the United States.
Barack Obama, the same thing.
Barack came from absolute nowhere. They created he's not even a real person. It's so weird times we live in. It's real nice. He was a CIA operative. His name was Barry Soetoro, and they just constructed him to let's make him so he fits everyone, and let's keep him saying things that people want to hear. Change, democracy, freedom for all, everything you want to hear. And he's such a nice, good-looking guy. And he just because he's black now, that really gets all the minorities in there. So to make absolute sure, they gave him Hussein as a middle name, so that would just get the Muslims in as well, people of the Islamic faith. And so they constructed him just like a boy band. They put him together to fit, So,
exactly. That's exactly what they do.
And I wish I was wrong, but I'm not.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Okay. So let's see these things that shows that what, like things that were happening before this. When the Danish drill was going on, there were people from international security forces agencies in Denmark, just by coincidence, giving talks and so on. And just before this happened in Paris, we had a meeting in the George Washington University, which was this meeting or conference was co-sponsored by the CIA. That's very nice. And the people invited were the former UK MI6 chief John Sawyers. He was the director of the French Directorate for Internal Security, Bernard Bajolet, and former Israeli National Security Advisor Yaakov Amidror. There was also, this was held on October 27th, I think, just like a few weeks or a week before this, October 27 or 29. But also the CIA director, John O'Brien, was there. Here we have the CIA, the Mossad, the French intelligence, and the MI6 together giving a conference, but what were they doing the rest of the time? And also, just by coincidence, François Hollande was on the phone with Barack Obama the very same morning. These pre-things that popped up before. There was also a YouTube account called Videos Paris Attack Exclusively. That one was created one day before it happened, on November the 12th. When people started observing this, the account was deleted. But how is it possible? Like, are people sitting with a crystal ball at home that's saying, oh, tomorrow or soon there will be attacks on Paris, so might as well set up this account? But when you see these things, these operations, the timeline, especially with different time zones and different countries, it gets complicated. I mean, like, you and I sometimes have difficulty just agreeing on 1 hour because we are in different locations in the world and because of difference. And here we have operations and they keep messing it up.
Yeah.
I mean, just the BBC reporter, the female reporter standing in front of Building 7, 20 minutes before it goes down, she talks about it just went down, and it's right there behind her.
Still standing.
Still standing. So these are the things that shows you very clearly that when people get stressed and there's a lot of things going on, not easy for them to carry it out correctly. Okay, so they always have also a bad guy, something, the boogeyman, and in this case, they were apparently 8. 7 of them very handedly blew themselves up. That's very handy, like I said, because then you don't have to interrogate them. They will not be able to talk or anything like that, and also very difficult to identify. I would very much question if anyone blew themselves up at all, because there are no photos, no evidence, no nothing except for a passport. Have we heard that one before? Yes, we have. Outside 9/11, everything, nothing survived when the 2 towers were dustified. There were no furniture, nothing from these 2 except the passport of one of the so-called hijackers.
Which was in pristine condition, by the way.
Pristine condition, and it was also a national flight. So why on earth would he even think of bringing his passport? But how convenient it was.
Yeah.
Also, it was very convenient that in their rental car there was a VHS video showing how to fly a 757, because that was how they learned it. They were sitting at home watching this video. I would say, I wish it was that easy. And then next to that video was the Quran. So thank God for that. At the 7/7 bombings in London, where they claimed there were 4 suicide bombers that blew themselves up, one passport was found in 3 different subway stations. The same passport. Pretty amazing. And they even found his driver's license. And guess what? He didn't have one.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And here we have a passport found again. Then we have the name. They always have these names to sound really, whoa, scary. And for some reason, they always need them to have 3 names. I don't know if that is to subliminal, Lee Harvey or Oswald, James Earl Ray,
yeah.
Barack Hussein Obama. No, I didn't want to say that. But this guy, his name is Salah Abdeslam. Okay, but if you listen to that word and you pick it apart a little, if you see it as a psyop, what your subconscious here is Allah Abdul Islam. They put it together so that Salah Abdeslam, that is really sounds like, I don't know, maybe it is a real name, but it really sounds to me that this could be part of the psyop.
They don't do anything by accident, Ole, so I would suspect that you're probably right.
But thank God they found a blown up finger, so now they fingerprinted him and identified one of the bombers. I would say let's watch and see if now they're going to push forward this whole thing about everybody needs to be fingerprinted,
Yeah.
Also, the description of the shooters, of course, they were Arabs with big beard and looking like ISIS, even though we don't know how ISIS looks like, sponsored by Toyota, by the way. And so this guy, when you hear witnesses, they say that they came in a BMW. Some of the other ones came in a Mercedes. They went out, they were dressed in black, well-trained. They had like dark trousers, like sweaters on with no color, white, short hair. And the way they fired were not like a mad, like, Allah Akbar, like this. It was military style, short burst of fire, 3 shots at a time. like this.
Yep.
And so I would very much say, in my world, this screams of gladio, gladio, gladio. Skilled killers. If there were real people killed, they were these people that killed them.
You know what gets
So,
me, only just for a second here, is going back to what we said earlier in the discussion. France, like all the other NATO countries, have such advanced surveillance technology, eavesdropping and so on. And they're supposedly using this technology to watch the bad guys. Yet the bad guys can apparently move freely. They can coordinate, they can plan, they can get all the players in place, and they can pull something off like this. And all that surveillance, all that technology, then if you're a thinking person, you would say to yourself, well, why do we have it? Obviously, it's not working, or you don't know how to use it. So I just want to put that out there to the audience so they can kind of think through that. I mean, they keep telling us they need more money for technology, they need more money for surveillance, they have to take more of our freedoms in order for us to be safe, and yet these things continue to happen. So we have to start asking questions about how good these people are really doing their job, at the very least.
I mean, if this was for real and it was you and I who was sort of the security responsible, we would get our butt kicked. We would be fired right away.
Yeah.
But these people don't. Instead, they're using it now in England because now they say, oh my God, all of this terror is happening again. So now they've applied for, I don't know if it gone through yet, but for 1,900 new jobs at the MI5, the MI6, the G6, GCHQ, and some other intelligence service in the UK. Do you know how many that is? 1,900 in a country like England that is already overflowing with people walking around with weapons and
right.
I mean it. And do all of these things based on, in my opinion, absolute lies.
Right.
This is not a real event that has happened, and here we are bombing, killing people in Syria, having the Danish, I think it is the Danish foreign minister, he's just like, go bomb the crap out of them, and civilian targets, and the report is saying, but don't you understand that there might be children and women? He says, I don't care. It's up to them to get them out of the way. They deserve this. They deserve what? They have done nothing.
Right.
This is a lie, an utter lie. So we go to the Bataclan. The Bataclan was, it is a concert hall. But when you look at it, it's not just any odd building. It's a very historical building in Paris. It looks very colorful. And when you look at the front of the building, the facade, if you want to, I don't know if I'm taking it too far, but there are pillars and there's an all-seeing eye if you want to see it there. I don't know if it's connected to Freemasonry or not, but the signs are there. And also the name Bataclan comes from a composer. His name was Jacques Offenbach, and the Bataclan opera, it was in 1855, I think. It was his big first real hit officially. And the theme of that opera is the overtake of the emperor, a conspiracy to overtake the emperor and kill the emperor, So very similar to what we're seeing here, how they take over. Coincidence or not? I don't know. I'm just pointing it out. Then inside, it said that this group that I keep forgetting, the name Eagles of Death Metal.
Oh, the Eagles of Death.
It is said that they were there to do a concert, and it was sold out. There was somewhere, they're not sure, but somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 people. That is a lot of people in one location. Okay, so it said that they started playing and and then these people entered and just started killing. It said that they were shooting for some 10 to 15 minutes. That is a long time to keep shooting.
It sure is.
It's a lot of bullets fired into a crowd, and yet it said that we have 80 dead people here. The rest somehow, they said that they were kept as a hostage, and then when the police got too close, these people decided to blow themselves up. No photos to start with, absolutely no photos. But I managed to get hold of one, which I'm going to go into detail, about. But there's also a video. You would think with 1,000, 1,500 people, everybody got mobile phones with videos. You would think that there would be someone filming this. The answer is yes, one. One person filmed it, and you can see the band is playing, da, 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 da. You got the crowd in front, and then suddenly you hear the shots being fired, bam, 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 like this. And you see the drummer jumps by, and he jumps and drops to the floor, and the guitarist starts staring and then starts moving away. Then it's cut. That video is cut. Okay, my question, wouldn't you, if you film that and the shooting starts, at least flinch or jump or get scared or no, the camera is totally steady. And you see the silhouettes of the people in the crowd right in front, nobody reacts. Okay, and why stop filming when the shooting starts? Wouldn't you turn the camera towards who was shooting?
Of course.
Wouldn't there be any photos? I mean, they were in there for hours. Wouldn't there be any kind? Where are the photos? Where are the videos? Where is all of this? Then you look at the building itself. The building itself, after 40 years of owned by a Jewish family, it was sold just 2 months ago. And it was sold to, I got the details here, I haven't got it in my head, but a Kuwait company. And that company, as far as I know, has been involved in funding terrorism before in different actions. So here we have this building being purchased just 2 months before, giving them plenty of time to prepare the whole thing. So there's only one photo of the dead inside the building. And nowadays, when with these digital cameras, when there is a photo, through the photo data in the photo itself, you can tell when the photo is taken, by what camera, and so on. Here, this photo that has finally been released is a screenshot of a photo, meaning that the data is from the screenshot. There's no data. So they got around that one. So you look at the inside, and yes, there are dead bodies, at least dead bodies, and blood. Because when you look at most of these photos that we've seen out from the street level and so on, there's absolutely no blood whatsoever. People have been shot right, left, and center. You just see bodies covered like on lit de parade with a blanket on top, where the blood has not even soaked through the blanket, or the blood has not soaked through the blankets that are put on top. And many of the bodies look totally like stiff, like the unknown soldier, these type of things. So this is almost the feeling you get, and then with flowers around. But this one, you've got bodies spread around. There's 25 bodies in the image, and as far as I've been told, normally there is a carpet, and a very beautiful carpet inside this concert hall. But here we see concrete floor, and then there's groups of bodies spread around on the floor, and then something has been dragged in the blood like a meter wide. That is what is a meter?
3 feet.
3 feet wide, like a brush stroke almost around these. And when you look at it in different angles, it is a heart. As far as I can see it, it's a heart around that. I mean, how sick is that? Is that to get us to think of the Valentine massacre, or is it? I don't get it. But it's very, very odd, to say the least, the way this blood, or somebody has been dragging a very heavy person that was bleeding incredibly much and very evenly. They've been dragging him around an area for like 30, 40 meters around these bodies. There's no police, there's no ambulance, there's personnel, there's no blankets, there's no first responder equipment, there's nothing, just dead bodies. But up on the corners you can see that it seems like there's some people on the rows where the seated rows up there, but it seems like they've been blacked out, so you can't see who they are.
Only a concert hall with 1,000 people, it's just not believable that there's just one picture. It's not believable.
I know. And then you see outside the concert hall, when the ambulances arrive and so on. If you look at the buildings right next to this, more or less all windows are dark. There's no light there. Wouldn't you, if you lived in a city block where there was a lot of shooting, bombs going off, wouldn't you wake up, turn on the light, maybe stare out through the windows,
Sure.
hang out? Wouldn't you go down on the street level and say, holy shit, what's going on here? Nothing. Instead, you see these black windows. I would very much suggest these buildings have been evacuated. Get normal people out of the way. Then we have, thank God we've got someone who's filmed this. You know, that is so good, because there is a man who, there's a small narrow alley to the right of Bataclan where there's exits. There are two exits coming out from the club. And there's this man who hears what's going on, and he pops his head out and then starts filming down this. I'm sure most of you have seen it. There's, especially in this video, you can see one woman, she's hanging on out of a window. She's hanging on the, what do you call it, the ledge?
The ledge.
From the window. And at one point, she lets go of one arm and hangs on with only one arm. And she hangs there for at least a minute. And so I say, try it yourself, not too easy. Anyway, he's filming and he sees, he's shouting out, what's happening? And he filmed these people drag away some bodies and so on. Very dramatic. Then when you look at it, who was filming? Well, it was a journalist from Le Monde who just happened to live there. Maybe he lives there, I don't know. But very convenient, that is, was a journalist very connected to the big newspaper Le Monde, who was part of pumping out a lot when it came to Charlie Hebdo, and now also very central in pumping this whole thing out. Then it's said that this man was later shot in the hand, which is also very odd, because the shooters did not get out of the building and they blew themselves up. This guy was on the other side, up in another building, and managed to get shot in the hand. Yet again, if you are shot, then you are a victim. And if anyone points a critical finger to you, say, how can you do that? He was a victim and he was actually shot as well.
Right.
That is so unfair. Then you look at some of the images taken, and there's especially some of these from, if you go to, Turner.com, that controls CNN, or owns CNN and so on. There's some of the photos. When you look at when you click at a photo, you can see the what do you call, the URL to that exact photo, where it goes step by step by step on whatever server it is, showing you where that photo, what's the exact name and so on. In Oslo, when I was looking into the mass murder in Oslo, I found that there was one from the TV2 website in Norway. When you went down through the different layers on the server, looking at the link to the image, at one set it said actors, some of them were victims / and then the image, the name of the image, and then some of them actors / and so on.
Wow.
So, and since in Norway, I believe there was a mixture of real dead victims and real crisis actors, because they needed to have the emotional impact. They needed the good images to be able to spread out in media. So on one side of the building, crisis actors of the government building, on the other side, real victims. And here, when you look at this one, there was a man who sent this to me, really good that he spotted it. And it said, blah, 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 Turner.com /CNN next /dam /assets and then the name of the image. Assets.
Assets, okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
And then a friend in Denmark sent me this. She said that they were on Danish TV. They were interviewing a guy that was there at the concert, and he said that they started to play 1 half hour, 30 minutes before it was set to start. When has that ever happened? But it is a perfect way to keep normal people out and keep your own people on the inside. Many who wasn't part of it were standing waiting outside, maybe, and then they started the concert half an hour earlier, and then the shooting started more or less at the same time.
Yeah, that's
This
bizarre.
this was then deleted. It disappeared from Danish TV, and now everything has been corrected so that the shooting did not start until half an hour after the concert started and so on. Also, you see this woman who's hanging out of the window. I've gone on Google Map and I've checked out the building, so I found the exact window that she's hanging out from. And in her defense, the window underneath where it seems like she's hanging in the air, there are some metal bars on that I think she was standing on one of them. Still, I think the way she is standing looks very, very odd because she's sort of hanging out at an angle that looks very dangerous where she could fall down. So I would suggest possibly there she was maybe she had a harness or a wire connected or something like that to keep her there. Because the windows, there's a man standing in the window next to it, very small windows, and he's sort of standing here, and there's like quite a drop down. But once again, where are all the videos from inside? Where are all the photos? Then you look at also they kept shooting for 10, 15 minutes, and they only managed to kill 80. I mean, how bad a shot are you? Then also they keep mentioning Kalashnikovs. Have you noticed? Kalashnikovs and AK-47. Normal people that are being interviewed keeps naming them Kalashnikovs. Normal people do not know Kalashnikovs. You know, they're not weapon experts at all.
Right, right.
But Kalashnikov, straight away you think of a Muslim terrorist. And an AK-47, that is the classical weapon they use. Then you have the victims. So many of the victims come from different countries. There's a whole long line of countries where there's one victim from each country. I would say, how do you emotionally involve a country? You kill one of their inhabitants. You know, that is the way people, if there's 220 dead in Sudan, who cares? If it's this and there, who cares? If it's from my country, that's where you get them. So here you got I think it's one from England, one from Sweden, one from Mexico, one from, okay. And there's one girl or young woman, her name is, was Naomi Gonzalez, and she was at the concert officially. Her parents heard about this on the Mexican news and freaked out because they knew she was going there, called her, she didn't pick up, then they called her boyfriend, and he said, no, we're fine, nothing, you know, we got out and so on. Then she was picked up by police for questioning, and then she ended up dead.
I didn't know about this. She ended up dead after she got picked up by the police?
Yes. And there's at least one witness that said that they were in the area, they saw these things happen, and then the police came and said, did you see it? Are you a witness? And the guy said, yes. And he said, where do you come from? Where do you come from? What kind of question is that? If not okay, you're from a country we don't already have, come with me. And what they were taking inside the cafe where the shooting had been. So they were stepping around dead bodies. You know, that's not how you deal with a crime scene. You keep people out. You would never infect a crime scene by taking witnesses in there.
Right.
And it's a little bit of an interesting guy. One of the witnesses. It's a Danish and English guy. He's got dual citizenship. I believe this guy. If there's any of the witnesses, I believe it's him. Otherwise, he's an extremely good actor because the way he described what was going on, the way his emotions. I mean, I buy it. But there's one thing I just want to point out with him is that he's got dual citizenship. And in Denmark, it's not possible. I'm Danish, so I was like, whoa, hang on, what's that? And there was a law in 2014 that allowed for dual citizenship, and it went through in September 2015. That's only like a month ago, 2 months ago. So he's one of the absolute first that had dual citizenship in England and UK. And here you have, in one person, you can affect two different countries. Just saying, not sure. I'm just pointing one of things out. Also, the hanging woman, they always want the hero story, you know, and she was hanging there at first, then suddenly she became pregnant, and then the one who pulled her in became the hero.
Yeah, they always need a hero.
They always need a hero. And sometimes maybe I pull it too far, but I really do believe that they are actually doing product placement as well in these operations. That they're trying to make a bundle in all different areas. So no disrespect, but I want to point it out anyway. At the Charlie Hebdo shooting, they were up on at the what do you call it, in the building, in the Charlie Hebdo building. There was one big pool of blood underneath an office chair where one was said to be killed. That's the only photo I've been able to get from the inside. Maybe there are more. Please, in that case, send it to me. But the office chair is like put on top of the blood. There's no footprints. There's no splatter on the chair. There's no, and so on. But right next to the blood, where your eyes are drawn, is a Puma bag. It says Puma. When the 7/7 bombings blew up, the bus that was blown up, on the side of the bus, you can check out for yourself, there's a Coca-Cola, there's a poster with a Coca-Cola bottle with an explosion behind it. No text, just a bottle and an explosion behind it on a poster on the side. And then on the other side, there's a film poster where it says "Pure Terror, a Real Thrill" or something like that.
Yeah.
But here you have, like I dare anyone when it comes to ISIS, which stands for Israeli Security Intelligence Services, by the way. But I dare, if you can find a photo where there's a vehicle in it, if it's not a Toyota.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You had the Charlie Hebdo one where the Citroën, where it was not even the same Citroën that was used in the filmed footage, and the one that was picked up afterwards, where they found the evidence. I mean, thank God for efficient police officers that managed to find that. The ID again of this guy. But anyway, the car that was lifted after the forensic evidence search is polished up. It's like showroom style polished, a Citroën C3. When you went down with Google Map on the street level and you looked at the exact position where the guy was said to have been shot on the pavement. By the way, he's living in Brazil now, doing really good. I've got inside info about he didn't say hello, but he's doing great. When you look at that pavement, there's a truck standing there, and on the side it says rental car, and then rental cars, and with an URL to that company. Here we have photos from Paris, and there's one photo or several photos with Nike shoes. They say that it's shoes from the victims, but the Nike logo stands out white, just like boom. Then you have one man, he goes by the name of Sylvester. He was walking outside the stadium when the bombs blew off, and a shrapnel just flew. He was speaking on the phone, and he was hit by a shrapnel, but he was holding his phone, and the phone saved his life because the shrapnel hit the mobile. And he shows it, he holds it up like this to the film crew, and it says Samsung, the phone that can save your life. Yeah. And now they've gone out, because all of these things always are filmed with GoPro cameras as well. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you have, I dare you once again, if you can find a so-called terrorist videos that they filmed by themselves, it is filmed with a GoPro camera. It is, and they keep naming the camera in the text from some of these, and then the witness picked out his GoPro camera, and then the GoPro camera. I don't want to give them extra publicity, but this is at least my experience. And here now you can see through CNN that the terrorists are using a new app called Telegram, and it's even with the logo of the app, and it says the reason why the terrorists are using it is because it is crypted. What do you call it?
Encrypted.
Encrypted, and you can have the whole description is there saying, but don't use it because the terrorists use it. Everyone who's into these type of security think, well, if it's good enough for ISIS, it's good enough for me. I might as well sign up here.
Well, then anybody who uses that app then therefore is on the radar as a enemy of the state or a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I don't put it past them, Oli. You and I talked about this, I think, once before, where they're doing product placement. I don't put it past them at all. Not at all.
I'm telling you, like Charlie Hebdo, if I remember right, the magazine was bought up just a week or 10 days before this happened. The first Charlie Hebdo or Paris event happened. And as far as I remember right, the profit went up with 10,000%.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Rothschild-owned company that bought it. 10,000% from this whole thing. Because everybody goes into the emotional thing. Oh, I must support the magazine that was so hit by this awful tragedy, you know. So also we have what else is in this whole mix is the G20 summit. The shooting occurs right before, distracting away our attention from what's going on there, because that is where some awful things are going to go, or at least they're planning to. So now we're not going to focus on that at all. It began on November 15 in Turkey, but now because of all of these things, people are looking at this. They're looking at dead people and being concerned about families. By the way, where are all the families to the victims? Where are all the photos of the victims? I'm just wondering. But due to this, nothing is happening. Then we have the climate change conference, also in Paris, upcoming in Paris, and just 17 days before this happened, it's going to start on November 30th, and they are planning to have to get legally binding universal climate change laws for the whole world to go through there.
That's right.
And they were expecting a lot of demonstrations, protests, and so on. But due to this thing, we're not allowed to, because for our security, we cannot have demonstration. We cannot speak out. And it's because for our protection once again. So that was very handy. And by the way, Al Gore, who's a Bilderberger big time, he was having a 24-hour live event at the Eiffel Tower, preparing for climate change.
Interesting.
So also check out the cover of the magazine, The Economist, for 2015. Very, very odd cover, to say the least. So weird. So if you didn't know about that one, check that one out.
I'll put the link in the show notes to that one. That is very odd, and it's loaded up with occult symbolism. Loaded up.
And then we have all of these buildings being lit up in the French colors out of empathy. And I say empathy is fantastic. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying put the empathy where it's supposed to be, with real victims. For instance, in Syria. Now, this is a country that really needs empathy.
That's right.
Or Palestine, or these where they're real victims. But here we have this happen in France. Oh my God, we need to do, the whole thing. So here we have, especially in these countries that I told you about, the UK, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, the countries I named before, you have these buildings being lit up in the French colors. And only one little problem here. As far as I've been informed, this was Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. She has had a person informing her that the lighting for Wembley was tried out 1 hour before it actually happened. And then we have the time difference between the UK and Paris is 1 hour. So maybe somebody by mistake, it's 9:20, put it on. Oh, shite. It's not in another hour. Turn it off.
Right.
So,
it's unbelievable. It really is. They're pulling at people's heartstrings. It's the worst kind of evil. It really is. If there's degrees of evil, Oli. It's just that they're taking the innate human response to tragedy and they're playing it. And they're playing people and they're duping people and they're sucking them right into their big black hole of global government. It really is unbelievable.
And now in Sweden, there is a threat against the government. Okay, where did that? An email came saying something's evil is going to happen or horrible is going to happen to the Swedish government building. Okay, well, they just kept working, but this whole thing was pumped out there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, And in the same newspapers that this came out, it was about the attacks on Syria, justifying what was done because of this awful thing here. And you had, I think, similar things in Denmark as well. And I would very much suggest that in these countries I named before, you will have similar things. And in Germany, in Hanover, there was this big thing that there was a big, I think it was football game, just like in Paris, very similar event. But then, and Angela Merkel was going to be there. I mean, really, this thing just happened in France. Don't you think it would be a good idea maybe to stay home and not repeat the whole thing? She was going to be there, and then they found out that an ambulance was going to be filled with explosives and driven in the stadium to be blown up.
Yeah, it's cartoon world stuff. This is the type of stuff that you would watch if you were going to a movie, or you're watching a TV series, an ambulance filled with explosives. It just never stops. It's all stuff that in the real world, if we were operating the way we're supposed to be operating, this stuff would never exist. It's just mind-boggling to me that people even buy into this stuff. You were talking about the threats against Sweden. I mean, then they made threats against something is going to happen in Washington, D.C. It's just all over the place. It's the same MO, no matter where you are.
It is.
It's the same thing over and over again.
Do you remember when George Bush Jr., he went out and said, "We've been warned that something is going to happen.
Yeah.
We don't know where, we don't know when, but something horrible is going to happen, and we've been warned about it.
Right.
So we want to warn you that something horrible will happen." What is that? I mean, it is on a level that is just incredible.
It's fear, and they love sports arenas. They just love to put the fear into sports arenas. God, it's so sick.
I just want to point out also that they keep making referrals to the 7/7 bombings, but that one is a major force, right? Where you got the Mossad and the MI6 and the CIA, all of them working together with people. Did you know that the mayor, Rudolph, what is his name? Giuliani, he was there at the same hotel as Benjamin Netanyahu, right where the bombs went off. But Netanyahu was warned 6 minutes before it happened, do not leave the building. That's very handy as well. But also one of the things is it wasn't only him, and that was the G7 or G8 meeting in England. So you had all of these leaders there as well. And they were going to say, one of the things on the agenda was that they were going to make the African countries debt-free, which would be amazing. But then due to this terror thing, I'm sorry, we have to spend all of these billions on weapons instead. So sort of African countries, you just keep starving and we will focus on war. But one of the things they keep referring to here in France is that these terrorists used the same type of explosives as at the 7/7 bombings when they blew up these different trains and so on. But when you look at the 7/7 bombings, it's said that they used these suicide bombers. They used something called TATP, and it's a mix of black pepper and I think hair bleach. And the thing is that you can make an explosive of periodic dioxide, I can't remember, but you can make something that is explosive out of it, but the impact is nothing like you would need, and also it's totally unreliable. But here, these four guys who never had any experience with that, they managed to put in the perfect amount and do at least four different attacks at the same time, more or less. By the way, after three of them had been killed, the bombs kept blowing up and so on. But they say that also the residue that was actually found in the subways and so on was C4, very, very advanced. The detonators were of a sort that has never ever been seen before by the experts. They say, we don't know what it is. It's like really high tech. And the people inside the train said that it felt like they were being electrocuted, not blown up, even though the floors were blown into the carriages and so on. And these
Right.
carriages just disappeared. They were never shown officially, never, and so on and so on. It just goes on and on. And here we have these suicide bombers that blew themselves up with TATP, black pepper and hair bleach. It's like, really.
Yeah, it's not believable. And for the audience, what I'm going to do, Oli, is for the 7/7 bombings, I'm going to put a link in for a documentary that's called 7/7 Ripple Effect.
Yeah.
And watch Ripple Effect and tell me that you don't walk away from that documentary understanding that the 7/7 London bombings was a total false flag.
And it's like they even had a TV program, like I can't remember how, it was like almost a year before, where they went into the whole scenario on BBC Panorama. They went through the whole with the government officials, there was especially one man called Peter Power, with his company, Visor, and they were going through the whole thing, describing exactly what could happen.
Right.
And how they needed, unfortunately, to shut down the media. They were not being, all of these, how to control it. And then the program ends very, and good night. And the commentator just mentioned, and just know that you have been warned. Do you remember the thing we were talking about before with the karma thing? Okay. And then on that very exact same day when it happened, there was a massive drill with the exact same stations and a bus explosion being planned as a drill. And then they went, like Peter Power said on live TV, oh, so strange, like we had to go from slow thinking to fast acting. The whole thing went live, boom, like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so what are the chances that exact scenario, we are talking like, I can't remember how many people were involved in the drill, but it was like 1,200 or something like that. Ordinary good people that were involved in the whole thing.
Well, the chances normally would be like getting struck by lightning on a sunny day, but the chances increase when they're actually planning it and they're communicating and they're telegraphing it out to the public, trying to get it into the mass psyche that, hey, these things can happen, these things will happen. And also, Oli, what I wanted to ask you about is, with Russia doing what it's doing in Syria, supposedly taking out the real ISIS terrorism, the fact that they continue to use ISIS after Putin has made a total farce out of the whole ISIS ordeal in the Middle East, especially in Syria, that tells me also that they are, I say they, I'm talking about the controllers, they're very convinced that people are not connecting dots, that they don't really understand what's going on with Russia in Syria. They don't understand that ISIS is a construct of the U.S., of the Mossad, of British MI6, and so on. And so they are playing on people's ignorance, their lack of focus on looking into these things. And that, again, it becomes a little disconcerting that they're that convinced that the people are so oblivious and I hate to use this term, but so dumbed down that they can continue this storyline and get away with it.
But they don't have a lot of respect for us. And really, do we deserve it? I mean, how many times can they play out the same theme and we're still buying it? So I can totally understand that they have no respect whatsoever for us. At the same time, people are waking up on a scale that is unheard of. It's like when I started talking about these type of things, nobody listened. When before the Boston bombing, false flags were something that you didn't really know what it was or had heard of. After the Boston bombing, the search word in Google just went, whom, false flag. There were hundreds of thousands of hits. And now false flag is something that most people are aware of. And a thing like this happened, I am bombarded. I'm all type of shows, like please tell them. There's an incredible interest and awakening going on. So I think that they've been trying to create like a crescendo this fall. I think they were aiming at September with Jade Helm, with the end of the world, with the crisis, the financial crisis, all that they're really trying to get us into that corner. And it just totally failed and backfired on them. Nothing happened. Jade Helm, where did it go? I don't know. Ebola, where did it go? I don't know. It's just right out of the window. So here they are again, and this time really trying to do it globally to coordinate this whole thing, which is why I think we really need to be aware of what's going on, because otherwise they will succeed, and then in that case, this is not a fun place to be anymore.
Yeah, and that's why it's a good thing that we're doing this show, because I'm going to get this out right away so that people can listen to your thoughts and your analysis on what could very well be going on here. Because as I've mentioned before, you've talked about this, it's a template. They apply a template. And I want people to get away from the talking points that is presented on the mass media, the state-controlled media, and to start critically thinking about these events and understanding what's really going on.
Listen, I just want to say my website is lightonconspiracies.com. I have a newsletter, and if you would like more information about, because I really try to dig very deep into these false flags, including going on location and trying, when it happens, trying to defuse it while the operation is still going on. I tell you, I'm a major boil in the butt for these people.
I'm sure you are.
And I'm trying my absolute best to stay that way, so that we can stop this madness and let the world just turn into what it's meant to be. Because I tell you, if these people, if this small little group, they're only a few thousand, if they stop messing with us, it's like the bully in a neighborhood that is terrorizing the whole thing. If that bully or that group stops, automatically this world will turn into a place that, I tell you, will just be amazing just by them stopping. And I mean, then it's up to us with what we can then do with this world is so beautiful and so incredible. But anyway, if people want to support me, donations, that I'm not part of a group, I'm not funded by anyone. This is what I'm trying to focus my life on. And I've got a newsletter. If you want, please sign up for that. I try to every month on the first show what's going on, warning for these things, exposing what is happening, and so on, so that we can come to a better understanding and by that also transcend this problem.
No, excellent, Ole. You do excellent work, and I'm so glad that we're able to connect. And what I'm going to do, because this is very important, this show, is I'm going to work to have it out by tomorrow.
Excellent, excellent. The sooner the better, because time is the thing. They are really pushing, and it's not okay. Also, my book Coup d'etat is now on in slow motion, is now on Amazon after 25 years.
Good for you.
Yeah, I've been up against a brick wall, but then now I finally got it there.
Did you have to self-publish it to get it there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was actually. It was a very sad experience for me, because it turned out that a publisher that was going to publish me, an American publisher, turned out to be a controller. He was, and that he was there to control and take over the book and whatever. I don't know what he. So I even got an indirect death threat through that thing. So after that, I thought, I'm doing it myself. Try and stop this. I go that way. You try and stop that one. I go this way. And so on. So now it's up there.
Good. Excellent. Well, Ole, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I know you have a lot of these shows lined up, so I really appreciate you coming on and speaking to me.
My absolute pleasure, Mark. Anytime.
Okay.
Anytime. Maybe we can do a follow-up because I'm sure that a lot of things going to unravel within the next few days. So anytime you want, just let me know.
Absolutely. Whenever you want. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right, my friend.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
And that concludes our interview with Ole Dammegård, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Ole's work is completely self-funded, so if you could take a moment and visit his website, lightonconspiracies.com, and consider donating or sponsoring his work, it would be greatly appreciated. You can also purchase Ole's books at his website, including the highly acclaimed Coup d'etat in slow motion. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com, or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.